I want to know how worrisome you think it is, and you're right in the center of it because your Skyworks and Qorvo, two stocks you've talked about on numerous occasions on this program, are in bear market territory. They're down 23.5% and 20%, respectively. Some of the other names, because you got a lot of company here, Weiss, for other people who are holding these names. Taiwan Semi is down 23%. Teradyne's down 26.5%. Micron's down 31%. That's a new 52-week low. NVIDIA's down. NXP is down. Should we be more worried about this than we potentially are?
No, I don't think so. Look, they've been in bear market territory for sure. There have been no events. I mean, it's kind of ironic there's a chip shortage, yet the chip manufacturers are trading down. Put Micron aside, it's a different story. They're in DRAM and NAND, and that's just a completely different cycle with completely different supply-demand characteristics and too much supply. So let's separate those in terms of what I'll call the smarter chips, which are Skyworks and Qorvo. Their business is actually great. However, there are obviously wrinkles in the supply chain. The third quarter, to me, is going to be the reset quarter where the companies will either come out and say, hey, look, you know, we're missing it. Here's our guidance going forward, missing it through no fault of our own. And I believe that. I'm always skeptical when companies say that, but I believe it this time. And that will be the buy signal to go forward. So while months ago I pared back Qorvo and Skyworks because the positions have just gotten too big, it's still been very, very bruising because they're core positions. But you can't look at semis now as you looked at it in previous cycles. They're no longer dependent on just one or one and a half industries. By that, I mean personal computing or phones. They're in every single industry, and the applications are only growing. So this is a completely new sector from that standpoint without any historical precedence in terms of how they act.
So you're not buying the weakness.
We'll get through this.
You're not buying the weakness. I'm just going to get right to it. You're not buying the weakness.
Not right now. I will be buying the weakness. Actually, let me correct you on one thing, which I didn't tell our noted producer, Patty. I did initiate a small position in Teradyne. Because no matter what happens to the supply chain, this testing still goes on. It's an initial position. It's not core. I hope to build it up. I don't want to really buy any more in front of the quarter, but I think the future is very bright. If you recall, I sold this stock in the 120s, mid 120s, so I'm getting back in.
Okay, so that one's down, as I said, 26.5%. You make sure you tell Patty everything, all right, Weiss? We don't have to like.
Some things I want to keep just between us, Scott. Scott, some things are just you and I, you know.
Thank God we brought it out. Thank God we mentioned it. Joe, I don't know why you're laughing. Yeah. AMD, Lam, NVIDIA. What are you doing with the chips?
Yeah. What's wrong with AMD? AMD's in the right business. I think a lot of these chip names, there's a differentiation between what the business model is. Steve mentioned before Micron. He's 100% correct. Those are memory chips. Right now, they have no pricing power. Demand is incredibly weak. Western Digital, Texas Instruments, they're all going to struggle in that environment. But you look at a name like NVIDIA, you're thinking about Mellanox, you're talking about exposure to graphic chips, whether it is NVIDIA or even to a certain extent AMD. And I think those are the right chip names. So I think you have to be very tactical. Overall, there is absolutely going to be an impact from the SMH declining below its 200-day moving average. I disagree with Steven on that. I don't think you can ignore that. That's going to have an impact on the S&P 500 itself because the chips are so incredibly important. Semis really are what the transports used to be to the economy and to the markets. So you need the SMH to hold above the 200-day moving average. But you could selectively pick winners in the industry, and that's what I feel I've done with my holdings of NVIDIA, AMD, and Lam Research.